One day, there was a constant stream of rain falling from the sky. During the middle of that day, an ambulance seemingly materialized out of thin air and pulled up in front of a hospital. And from there, medical professionals, nurses, and other members of the staff are rushing towards outpatient therapy with a young boy who was involved in a serious car accident. The accident occurred earlier today. In addition to this, there are a few individuals who are inquiring about his health condition to the attending physician. Despite the fact that the boy is bleeding heavily, the doctor says that the boy's life is not in any danger at this time. An additional medical professional suggests that the hemostasis procedures be started as soon as possible. The attending doctor notices that the boy has the appearance of a student, which prompts him to express some curiosity about the circumstances surrounding the accident. A drunk driver was said to have been responsible for hitting their vehicle by a witness who was a witness. The physician questioned the patient about the reason why, and he also inquired about the conditions of other patients. The witness's response brought everyone's spirits down by revealing that, with the exception of the patient, all of the other people had already passed away at the scene. This young boy is the only person who was successful in escaping from the situation. Since the accident, the young boy has not shown any signs of regaining consciousness, and his condition is currently considered to be critical. Next to him on the bed at this very moment is a young woman who appears to be sick and needs some rest. The young lady is able to recognize the boy simply by looking at him, and she keeps the boy's name in her head at all times. This young man's name is Ha-yoon, and he is from South Korea. On that gloomy day, she learned that she had terminal cancer, and members of the boy's family passed away as well. The diagnosis was cardiology-related, specifically heart disease. In spite of the fact that the doctor's voice was soothing, she was still able to determine the gravity of the situation by observing his facial expression. It has been 10 years since she received a heart transplant, and now there is a problem with the organ that was given to her. The doctor inquired as to whether or not it was true that she had mentioned that she had been experiencing discomfort in her chest as of late. The doctor was concerned that she might have a heart condition. He was curious as to whether or not this information was reliable. And he went on to say that the reason for this is because the transplanted heart is not performing its function as it should be. Her mother went into a panic and asked the doctor why they were telling them that the operation had been successful when they had just told them a moment ago that it had not gone well. The doctor responded by explaining that they had just told them that it had not gone well. The response from the doctor, who appeared both perplexed and concerned at the same time, was that they were trying to determine the cause of this issue and that this was the first time they had seen it behave in this manner. He also mentioned that this was the first time that they had seen it behave in this manner. They are in immediate and critical need of a donor, but the problem is that there is such a long waiting list that no one will be able to help them for a very long time. The fact that there is no assurance that a second transplant will be of any benefit to her at all is, however, the more significant issue that needs to be addressed. Her mother had given up hope and had become depressed, which caused her to become clumsy, and while she was crying the doctor appeared perplexed. Her mother had fallen while she was crying. She was stunned as well, and she questioned to herself, "Am I really going to die?" She was on her way back from the doctor's office when she noticed, as she was walking through the hallway, that a cabin contained a boy who was unconscious and lying there. She recalls that his full name is Baek Ha-yoon and that he is a classmate of hers, but she does not recall ever having a conversation with him. Despite the fact that he is a classmate of hers, she does not recall ever having a conversation with him. He hasn't even had his coffee yet, so it must be pretty early. Everything that has taken place between the two of them up until this point is summed up in the aforementioned events. Suddenly, she overheard two nurses speaking about Ha-yoon with a glum expression, lamenting what an unfortunate young man Ha-yoon is. Even if he does wake up, the fact that both of his parents and his sister have passed away leaves him with the question of what he will do with the rest of his life. The nurses had a perfect understanding of the situation. When Ha-yoon did eventually regain consciousness, he was in a terrible state of melancholy. He was yelling at the top of his lungs and yelling at the top of his lungs. I don't understand why he is the only one who can save me from this predicament. Why did you come to my aid when I was in trouble? I was so upset that I couldn't control my emotions and was yelling and crying while asking what I should do about living by myself. It was a horrible thing to see, and it tore at my heart every time I thought about it. Everyone felt sorry and sympathetic toward him because of his situation. The nurses and the other members of the staff worked diligently to maintain Haun's stability as quickly as possible. Haun did not regain consciousness until a sizable amount of time had elapsed after the initial incident. At the age of 18, one of the other girls in Hyun's class was struggling with a problematic facet of the real world. She, too, was experiencing some feelings of depression. The young woman was carrying a bottle of soda with her as she made her way slowly up to the roof so that she could have some time to herself. She was muttering to herself that it was an exceptionally hot day as she sat on a ledge of the roof and looked up at the sky. She was observing the heavens above. And she started to think about the fact that even if she were extremely fortunate, the doctor's prognosis was that she would only live for another year. This caused her to become extremely depressed. As she thought about these things, she began to feel irritated, and as a result, she threw the bottle of cola that she was holding toward the garbage can. Despite this, the objective has not been achieved. Why do you insist on saying it out loud, especially when it's not necessary? I don't understand why my life should be taken. Why do I have to face this depressing reality when it's not even my choice? Why am I being punished for something that I haven't even done? Unexpectedly, at that very moment, a young boy appeared from behind her and started walking in her direction. During this time, there is only the sound of their eyes moving back and forth across each other. After that, she felt ashamed because she had carelessly thrown the bottle of soda out of the trash can instead of placing it in the trash can as she had intended. She had an uncomfortable feeling of embarrassment and had an intense desire to leave. Suddenly, the boy reached for her clothing and called her name. He also called her attention to himself. She is unable to find the words to express how she feels after this unexpected turn of events. The young man greeted the young lady with a friendly smile and then presented her with a sweet treat. She acknowledges the gift before inquiring about the child's identity before accepting the candy. The young man's name is Yoon Ji-han, according to what he has to say about the situation. Also, find out what her name is and how she can be reached. After that, he asked what her name was, to which she replied that her name is Yoon-ha. He then proceeded to ask her further questions. The young man inquired as to her whereabouts and what she was doing there in order to gain further insight into the situation. She responded to him in a way that was unconscious, stating that she had heart disease and that was the reason why she was there. After she had finished answering, she started thinking to herself, why am I discussing this topic with the boy? Then, they witnessed a flashback of the doctor discussing her condition with her and informing her that they needed to perform some tests on her to determine what she was suffering from and what the source of these symptoms was. In addition to this, the doctor explained to her that they were dealing with this problem for the very first time, and that after that, they will be able to track her progression more closely. She was engaged in her own internal monologue and completely immersed in her own thoughts. It was completely out of the blue when the boy started talking to her once more, and he informed her that the operation would not be in her best interest. And his mother wept, just like she remembered her own mother doing when she was a child. Because she was unable to give him a healthy body, she bursts into tears whenever she sees him and begs for his forgiveness for her inability to provide it for him. She is aware of the wrongdoing, which contributes to her guilty conscience. She inquired about Jihan's level of anxiety by asking him some questions. However, Jihan responded that he was initially terrified but that he was doing fine now, despite the terrifying experience he had earlier. And in addition to that, he mentioned that the doctor had told him that if he didn't give up, a miracle might occur. This was an additional piece of information that was provided by him. After he has recovered from his illness, he and his parents are going to take a trip to an amusement park to spend the day there. Hearing Jihan's words helped lift the cloud that had been lingering over her disposition. She made an effort to comfort him and assuaged his fears by assuring him that he would feel better in a short period of time. In addition, he expressed his gratitude to her and wished her a speedy recovery while also expressing the hope that they would cross paths again in the not-too-distant future, and cautioned her against doing so, explaining that it would only bring him more heartache if she continued to do so. It was important for him to get back to his room quickly so that he could catch the next episode of the Power Rangers show that was airing on the television in there. He was an inspiration to her, and it was because of him that she did not give up. She was under the impression that some bravery had been bestowed upon her. Now we see Eun-ha in the company of both of her parents, her mother and her father. When she tells her parents that she wants to go to school despite the fact that she is sick, they are taken aback and surprised by her decision. She initiates the conversation by requesting their authorization. Her father immediately expressed his disagreement with her confession and brought up the suggestion made by her doctor that she should undergo treatment if she wanted to live for a longer period of time. If she wants to live for a longer period of time, her father suggested she should undergo treatment. However, Eun-ha argues to his father that it is not likely that she will live a few extra years as a result of the treatment and that this is precisely the reason why she wants to go to school. He believes that Eun-ha is correct. She states that the opportunity to learn new things is precisely why she wants to attend school. She also mentioned that she doesn't want to spend the rest of her life in a hospital room and that even if it's just for 1 year, she wants to spend her time doing the things that she wants to do the most instead of spending it in a hospital. She said that she doesn't want to spend the rest of her life in a hospital room. When she started to tell about her mother's passing, her mother became enraged, and she reminded her that there should be a limit to what she could say in front of her parents, and that she shouldn't say any words about her mother's passing to her parents' faces. Her mother also reminded her that there should be a limit to what she could say in front of her parents, and that she shouldn't say anything about her grandmother's passing to their faces. Her mother's passing had been a terrible loss for her and for the rest of her family as well. In addition, she gives Eun-ha her word that she won't let her daughter die and that she and her husband will do everything in their power to try to save her. Consequently, she should not assert that she will pass away so quickly because it is not true. When she thinks about what will happen to her after she has passed away, she can't help but feel depressed because she can't stop herself from wondering what will happen to her. How would you describe the way she lives her life? She does not own anything else besides herself, so she is the only thing she possesses. Her father is attempting to reassure her mother, but he is having a difficult time doing so at the moment. Eun-ha turned to her mother after a brief pause in which she was rendered speechless and asked her whether or not she remembered the time when Eun-ha attended preschool. Eun-ha was singled out for praise due to the fact that she maintained a healthy diet in spite of the fact that the majority of the other children refused to consume bell peppers. She also mentioned that when she was younger, due to the fact that both of her parents had jobs, she was the one who was responsible for doing housework. Her grandmother complimented her on the work that she did around the house. Also brought to her attention was the fact that even when she was in middle school and her classmates were going through the transition to puberty, she does not recall ever rebelling against them. This brought her to realize that this is something that she needs to change. She is going to defy their wishes for the very first and very last time, and after that, she is not going to do it again. Instead, she is going to continue her education so that she will not have any regrets in the future. When her mother hears this, her mother is rendered speechless, and a flashback of Eun-ha's childhood appears before us. When Yui Eun-ha was a child, she expressed an interest in taking in a stray cat. However, her mother dissuaded her from doing so, explaining that Yui Eun-ha's father suffers from an allergy to cats. Yui Eun-ha's mother also discouraged her from taking in a stray dog because Yui Eun-ha's mother is allergic to dogs. On the other hand, she mentioned to her that she might be able to keep that cat in her room if that was something that she wanted to do. At some point, Eun-ha's mother conceded defeat and told her daughter that she was free to pursue any interests or goals that she wished. After that, she made an effort to comprehend what it was that her mother was trying to tell her to convey to her. After considering the situation for a while, she eventually came to the conclusion that she could keep the cat in her room with her. She then went to the cat's box, picked up the animal, and whispered to the animal that she would be able to keep the animal there with her. She had a lot of questions regarding the cat's sexual orientation. She thought the cat was incredibly cute in a lovable sort of way. When she finally dozed off in the evening, she was holding the cat in her arms when she went to sleep. Her mother came to where her daughter was playing and informed her that Eunha had dozed off while playing with the kitty. She said that her daughter had fallen asleep with the kitty. Her mother also mumbled something about how children have an unfair advantage over their parents in competitions. When Eunha first opened her eyes, her mother was standing in front of her, and the family cat was sound asleep on her hands. On her mother's face, there was not the slightest indication that she was concerned. She questioned Eunha about the kitty's naming while they were still in the process of driving back to their residence and asked what name she would give it. Eunha responded that after giving it some thought, she eventually decided that she would call the kitty Noel. This decision came about after she had given it some consideration. The memory recollection has come to an end. After the recall of these recollections, her mother mumbles while telling the story for the first and last time. She believes that it is completely ridiculous on every level. When Eunha discovers that she will indeed grant her request, her long-held hope is finally realized, and as a result, she is overcome with happiness at this turn of events. She is so overjoyed at this new information that she can barely contain herself. Then, her mother adds a condition to the deal, which is that she has to promise her daughter that she will have to get the appropriate treatment as soon as possible if even a slight deterioration in her condition occurs. This condition is added because her mother wants to ensure that her daughter receives the best care possible. Eunha gave her mother a sincere thank you for complying with this requirement and nodded her head in agreement with the stipulation that was being imposed. The little R reprimanded her, and then Eunha's mother reminded her that her father was still present and that he was the one who had fed Noel earlier in the day. Eunha's mother added that her father was the one who had fed Noel earlier in the day. In the aftermath of this emotionally moving argument that took place between members of Eunha's family, we notice that Eunha has already started packing her belongings, and the doctors have released Eunha from her hospitalization for the time being. The question was posed by Eunha's mother to her daughter, who was tasked with addressing whether or not she had packed all of their belongings. The way that she responded gave the impression that the answer was yes. They were getting ready to leave, and as she was walking through Hyun's room, she paused for a few seconds to take a look inside his space before continuing on. She finds Baek Hyun sitting all by himself on his bed, staring vacantly out the window as the world goes about its business outside. His eyes are lifeless, and he gives no indication that he has any desire to sustain his independent existence in any way. When Eunha's mother saw her, she questioned her about why she was looking into another person's bedroom. Eunha's mother was concerned about her daughter's behavior. The explanation that Eunha gave for her behavior was that she was merely inquisitive. She reassured her mother that she would be there soon and that she did not need to worry about her. She hugs her mother's right hand as she does so and asks her mother if she wants to get tteokbokki before they go home. Her mother nods her head in the affirmative. The topic of acquisition was brought up by Eunha's mother, who questioned whether or not they ought to go ahead and get it. The moment she caught a glimpse of the grin on Eunha's face, she had the answer in her mind. She was ruminating on Hyun in her head at the same time that she was considering the craziness that life can bring. On the other hand, Hyun is perfectly healthy and secure, but he is the one who has expressed a desire to end his life in a coercive manner and who has attempted to take his own life on multiple occasions. Due to the severity of her condition, she was compelled to pass away even though she desperately wanted to live. On the other hand, she was the one who ultimately had to pass away because of the severe illness she was suffering from. She was able to pick up on his immoral desire for her, despite his attempts to hide it. Because of this, they are complete opposites of one another, but she has a lot of faith that they will be able to better understand one another as a result of the differences that exist between them. As she walks with her mother to get tteokbokki, she casts a glance in the direction of Ha-yoon's room and murmurs to herself that she will see him at school once more while she does so. This is the tale of two people, Eun-ha, who had a pessimistic outlook on life, and Ha-yoon, whose situation did not appear to have any potential for advancement. To call it love would be an insult, but to call it pain would be an insult to its beauty. It is much too beautiful to be called pain. According to Eun-ha, this is the story of the year that was both the longest and the most precious in her life. It was also the year in which she spent the most time with her family.